We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace someday. How deep in my heart, oh, I do believe we shall live in peace someday. Thank you.
Thank you, John Legend. And welcome to everybody. Thank you all for joining us for the announcement of the BREATHE Act. This bill comes at an absolutely historic moment. A people-powered movement in the streets has paved the path for this pressing people-powered bill. The Movement for Black Lives represents a unified front of Black activists, of policy experts, and everyday people directly impacted by centuries of excessive and remorseless policing. So many of our leaders have failed to deliver on the clear mandate coming from our communities to protect and to defend Black life. Today's press conference has one question at the core. That is, who among our leaders will answer the people's call? Who will answer the people's mandate for a new vision of community safety? The BREATHE Act outlines a vision that truly defends Black lives, and it invests in communities where Black and marginalized communities can thrive, where they can be free, where they can breathe. To start us off, we'll be hearing from three courageous Black women who have been leading the fight for Black lives in their communities and really around the country. We're joined by Leslie McSpadden and Gwen Carr. Both know too well the consequences of not being bold in this moment. Since the murder of her son, Michael Brown, in 2014, Leslie has been a fierce political activist. She's the leader in the Mothers of the Movement, and she's the founder of the Michael O.D. Brown Foundation. Gwen Carr has been fighting for change in New York City since her son, Eric Garner, was murdered by the New York Police Department by a chokehold. She's joined by Kayla Reed, a St. Louis native and a community organizer with Action St. Louis. She's part of a Movement for Black Lives leadership team, and she co-created the group's Electoral Justice Project. Thank you all for your courage and for your leadership.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm Leslie McSpadden. I'm the mother of Michael Brown. And in 2014, millions of people from all backgrounds in our communities all over the country and the world rose up after the unjust murder of my son. He was robbed of his dreams on August 9th. But I've been fighting for justice for Mike and to keep his legacy alive every day and will continue because the fight isn't over. Whenever we start this conversation on how to get rid of out of control policing practices, we start with what isn't possible. But today we intend to show you what is possible. You will hear shortly about the BREATHE Act's vision for defending and investing in Black lives. And the part I'm most proud about is a provision in the honor of my son, Michael Brown, which will provide reparations for survivors of law enforcement violence and the families of people killed by the police and the carceral system. We know that the majority of the cases do not generate significant media exposure or public support. And those families may struggle to pay legal fees, access affordable mental health counseling, or even meet basic needs if the person who was impacted is the breadwinner of the household. As for those who fight and even manage to survive financially, the pressure to advocate and relieve the worst nightmare of one's life can result in severe PTSD or other mental health challenges. So it is only right that this bill includes the call for a Mike Brown fund that will seek to support the important goal of the time is now. No more shortcuts, no more temporary fixes or avoiding the real issues of tangible reform. Our lives depend on this. Our children's lives depend on this. And this is what we are seeing with all of the ages and colors of people standing up for us to make it clear. We will not stop until transformation of public safety and reinvestment into our communities is made. We will not stop until no one else's child loses their life to police violence. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Gwen Carr. I am the mother of Eric Garner. 6 years ago, almost to the date, my son was murdered by NYPD. He said, "I can't breathe." 11 times he said, "I can't breathe." And still the disconcerted police officers decided to take his life. And those last words are now coming back, and they are the nation's cry. They are rallying, saying, "I can't breathe." This is a boomerang coming back to us. So we know how important this bill will be to us. I do not fight alone. There are many who fight with me, and I welcome you to the fight, because from now on, we all will have to fight together. And even though I only got a little justice after 5 years, a little too little, too late, but I continue to fight. It has just put more fight in me. And this BREATHE Act, we have to have it implemented, because we have to protect the communities, we have to connect the people of color. And along the way, I have lost family members. I have lost my husband, lost my grandchild, and we all was fighting, and we were all going the same way. So today, I have to say to the Congress, to the legislators, the lawmakers, that this day, I have to say to the Congress, to the legislators, the lawmakers, that this bill has to pass. We do not have time to wait. It has to be done now, immediately. So we ask for your support in this bill. Thank you.
So honored to follow Ms. McSpadden and Ms. Carr. My name is Kayla Reed, and I am the co-organizer of the Electoral Justice Project of the Movement for Black Lives, as well as the executive director of Action St. Louis. I was born and raised in St. Louis, and on August 9th, my life was forever changed. Thousands took to the streets to demand justice for Mike Brown, and many other names we would continue to lift up and fight for. Since 2014, we have watched thousands more from every single state in the country take to the streets to protest and demand transformative justice. As an activist and an organizer, I have worked and watched other brilliant organizers build bold campaigns that will change the material conditions of our communities. And I can proudly say this: we are winning. Here in St. Louis, we are days away from passing legislation locally that will close a jail known as the Workhouse that has held our people in inhumane conditions for decades because they could not afford to pay bail. In Minneapolis, a veto-proof majority of the city council has pledged to take the steps necessary to disband the police department there. The mayor of Los Angeles announced that the city's police budget would be cut by $100 to $150 million to reinvest those resources into programs to better the conditions for Black residents. In Boston, they are cutting $12 million from its police department and redistributing the money to community services. The people's call to defend Black lives is getting louder and stronger in local communities in every state around the country. We are proud to represent the coalition that hosted 675 events last Juneteenth weekend. We are winning. Local power is beginning to answer the people's call, but we need much more. We need the federal government to be a leader in this historic moment. Who will answer the call for a federal standard of community safety? Who will lead the country in a national effort to divest from policing and invest in Black lives? Our people, our mothers, our children are ready, and we are waiting. Our questions to everyone today: will you answer a call to champion the 21st Century Civil Rights Act?
Thank you so much, Leslie. Thank you, Gwen. And of course, thank you, Kayla, for your words and your insights. Next up, we'll hear from Gina Clayton-Johnson. She's an attorney, she's an organizer, and she's the leader of the Movement for Black Lives Policy Table. She's also the founder and executive director of the SE Justice Group. Gina.
Thank you, Mark. Today, our network has helped create a people-powered bill that reflects the mandates we hear echoed loudly across this nation. The Movement for Black Lives has a dedicated base of 150 organizations made up of Black activists and organizers, policy experts, and people directly impacted by the most violent forms of anti-Black violence and racism. Our collective vision for public safety is simple. It's one that invests in people and dismantles the systems that are killing us. To be clear, our vision has not been articulated in federal legislation ever before. For the last 6 years, we've been developing policy, organizing our people across the country. This bill, each of the 4 sections, represents the lessons learned, what families have called for, what has worked, and the courageous demands of our people that have yet to be realized on a federal level. So what does the Movement for Black Lives federal bill propose? The BREATHE Act is divided into 4 sections. Section 1 ends criminal legal system harms by divesting federal resources from incarceration and policing. This is the section that addresses what we as a movement mean when we say defund. Broadly, it removes the federal dollars that have contributed to the militarization, surveillance, incarceration, and impoverishment of Black communities. The next section, Section 2, invests in new approaches to community safety by utilizing state incentives. When we say defund, we mean remove resources away from the harmful criminal legal system and invest in what actually keeps us safe. Section 2 encourages states through incentives to make public safety investments that do not rely on harmful policing and incarceration. If Section 2 was about making sure we are safe and are allowed to survive, Section 3 is all about us thriving. Section 3 allocates new money to build healthy, sustainable, and equitable communities for all people. In this section, we create several new grant programs for education, environment, families, economic justice, and more. These grant programs encourage and enable states to legislate funding equality between schools, address houselessness, ensure public access to safe, clean water for drinking, and expand Medicaid without work requirements, and establish job programs that target the most economically disadvantaged. And finally, Section 4 holds officials accountable and enhances self-determination of Black communities. Included in Section 4 is historical reparations in the way that H.R. 40 has long imagined possible. It provides accountability at the ballot box through public financing of federal elections, restores the right to vote to incarcerated and formerly incarcerated people, and provides funds and services to the families and victims of policing and racist criminal legal system violence. And those are just the highlights. We crafted this bill to be big because we know the solution needs to be as big as the 400-year-old problem itself. We are here to celebrate the actionable promise that the BREATHE Act offers us as Black people. Available today is our bill summary, which you can download at www.breatheact.org. Please sign up to learn more and be among the first to receive bill text as we make it available.
Thank you so much, Gina, for outlining the vision of the BREATHE Act and its role in answering the call that we've been talking about today. It's my pleasure to introduce to you someone now who really doesn't even need an introduction. This LA native.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mark, and thank you to all of the panelists who have spoken. I am really grateful to be here today. I'm feeling moved by this moment and this experience, and I know that we are winning, as Kayla said earlier. I came to this work as a child of the 80s and 90s. I witnessed the disturbing impacts of the war on drugs and the war on gangs in real time. It meant consistent raids by the Los Angeles Police Department. It meant my siblings and father being hauled off in police cars and sent to overcrowded, rat-infested county jails. It meant over-sentencing and mass incarceration. I was 5 years old when the Los Angeles Police Department raided my home for the first time. They pillaged our home, and I remember thinking, why is this happening? In 1999, my best friend and older brother was viciously beaten by the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department. He was beaten because he suffers from schizoaffective disorder. Not only was he beaten, but he was tortured for days on end, starved and forced to drink out of toilet bowl water. He, like so many other poor, Black, and disabled people, have been dehumanized and traumatized by law enforcement. Today, we call for an ending of police torture and terror. We call for that ending through the BREATHE Act. In 2013, Alicia Garza, Opal Tometi, and I started Black Lives Matter. Our intention was to create space for Black people to challenge the ways our communities were impacted by state violence. Trayvon Martin, Cece McDonald, Renisha McBride, and so many other Black loved ones were stolen from us. We wanted our voices heard, but more importantly, we wanted Black people to have the power to determine our own destinies. Right now, the streets are swelling with demands for a new future and a new policy mandate. The movement for Black Lives has responded with a vision that reflects these demands on a federal level. Our movement is strong, and we're inviting our nation's leaders to join us in making this vision a reality. We are not only in service of the people who have lost their lives to police violence, like Breonna Taylor, Tony McDade, Ezell Ford, Ryan Twyman, and Riddell Jones. We are directly accountable to their families. We have to be able to go back to them when we leave this press conference and say that we honored their loved one's sacrifice. We're asking our leaders to do the same. At the core of the BREATHE Act is what's become clear to many of us. Policing, as we know it, needs to be drastically less powerful. I urge our leaders to be bold and courageous in this moment. For over 4 decades, the federal government has poured billions of dollars into police departments. Federal dollars have incentivized arrest, jail and prison construction, and the militarization of constantly growing police forces. And the truth is, all these resources spent have not made us safer. We cannot innovate new approaches to safety and accountability. We can innovate new approaches to safety and accountability that better serve the needs of the people without creating massive gaps in our crisis response, without traumatizing and decimating communities. The BREATHE Act gets us closer to justice. Our movement has captured the imagination of millions of people in every single state across America. We are looking for bold leaders to join us, to join the people's call to action. Who will answer the people's call? Who among our leaders is ready to respond to the mandate of our ancestors and communities? Who among our leaders will champion a 21st century Civil Rights Act? Who will answer the Black movement and champion the BREATHE Act? Thank you.
There is a powerful call from all 50 states in nearly every district in the US House of Representatives. Do we have a leader in Congress willing to answer the call?
Oh, I'm so sorry. It froze on me. Thank you so much, Mark, and thank you so much to my incredible sisters across the country who are speaking truth to power. I'm Rashida Tlaib, representing the 13th District in one of the most beautiful, blackest cities in America, the city of Detroit. I'm following my sister in service, Ayanna Pressley, in answering the Movement for Black Lives call. Our communities in the 13th and I are committed to fully engaging with this legislation seriously and with a sense of urgency. In this historic moment, it is critical that we listen to and trust the leadership of Black activists around the country. They have been on the front lines in defense of Black lives for decades, and it is our responsibility as legislators to hear them, respect them, and follow their example. The BREATHE Act is bold. It's meaningful, it's transformative. It pushes us to reimagine power structures and what community investment really looks like. If we listen to our community members and leaders in the streets, we can start to envision through this bill a new version for public safety, a new vision for public safety, one that protects and affirms Black lives. I stand in solidarity with the leaders from Movement for Black Lives and with my sister, Congresswoman Pressley, and with the millions of protesters demanding transformation now. When they shout, "Show me what democracy looks like," I can't help but think that this is exactly what democracy looks like, a people-powered federal bill that responds to the work and mandates of local communities across the country. So I invite my colleagues, my fellow Congress members, to join me and other legislators in taking this very bold step towards a just future. And again, thank you so much for all of the courageous movement folks that have been encouraging us to move forward. And I look forward to continue to speak the truth about what really being safe in our communities looks like. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Congresswoman Tlaib. I'd like to turn to Jessica Bird, who will help us frame this and really wrap this conversation with facts and stats. Jessica Bird is the founding partner at 3 Point Strategy. She's also the co-lead of the Movement for Black Lives policy table. Jessica?
Thank you so much, Mark. And thank you to the courageous Rashida Tlaib and the courageous Ayanna Pressley, who answered the call to open the gates to dialogue for a rigorous discussion and investigation on the ideas presented in the BREATHE Act. And I hope that you all are taking note of all of our speakers today and how they're answering the call. Just like everything in Black movement, this has been a labor of love. This has been a small collective rooted in local organizing, connected with people all across this country, organizations, individuals, our family members, to ground us in this moment and to offer this big, big vision. A 50-state uprising has changed the conditions of what is possible. Just like Freedom Summer in the 1960s that paved the way for a Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, we demand that our Freedom Summer be met with a civil rights legislation for a 21st century Black movement, and that's the BREATHE Act. Over the last 6 years, as the Movement for Black Lives has been building a strong and connected Black ecosystem, public opinion has changed. Before Congresswoman Tlaib and Congresswoman Pressley's time in Congress, folks thought that saying Black Lives Matter was controversial. And now, look where we are. Since the protests ignited over fatal shootings of Trayvon Martin and Michael Brown, we have polling and research that shows that nearly 87% of Democrats, 76% of independents, and 53% of Republicans expressed support for protests in response to George Floyd's murder. And the most recent data shows not only are there high levels of support among Black voters to engage deeply in a conversation of criminal justice, but 72% of Black voters agree that there should be a divestment from police. Oftentimes, Black movement is told what should be politically possible. What next? How are you going to connect this to a next step? I don't know, is this the right language? Is this the right tactic? Aren't you all being too bold, too radical, too left? So often we're relegated to this radical ideology that just lives on Twitter to troll people. We're here to say, in the names of our families, in the names of this beautiful community, in the moment of this history, to honor our ancestors, to earn the respect of future generations, to be transformed in the service of this moment and this work as the mandate that Mary Hooks has provided Black people in this time, is that we say this is not a time to be timid. We are asking for courageous leadership to join us. We've proven that what seems impossible today is doable tomorrow, and there is momentum that joins us. So will you join us in answering this call? Will you join us in engaging in dialogue with these incredible, courageous congresswomen? Will you join us in being a community co-sponsor of this bill? Will you join us in reading the vision and the framework for a 21st century Civil Rights Act? Will you join what New York Times called the largest social movement in US history? This is a call for federal legislation that boldly protects and invests in Black lives. We do this for Mike Brown. We do this for Eric Garner. We do this for Tony McDade. We do this for all of our people that are experiencing state violence, and we cannot achieve this alone. That's why we are calling on those raising their voices in the streets to get involved with the BREATHE Act at breatheact.org. We encourage every colleague of our courageous members here today to join them in discussion about this incredible vision. And we hope that you all see this as the beginning of a conversation and not the end. Thank you all so much. And we are so thrilled to unveil this beautiful offering to our Black movement.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We had we also, just for note, we had Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley here as well. We had a bit of a tech challenge. If she's in the room, I would like to give her an opportunity to speak. Otherwise, later on today, I'm sure she'll issue her own remarks regarding this. I just want to confirm, because of a tech issue on my end, that she's not here. All right, we'll make sure that Congresswoman Pressley's remarks are offered later today. But right now, what I want to do as we end the live stream is, first of all, thank you all for attending. This, again, is a historic moment in American history, and this piece of legislation is a key part of what the next steps could look like. It's a key part of what our future could look like, and it's an extraordinary opportunity to build the kind of future, the type of community, the type of country that we've all dreamed of seeing. Right now, the live stream is ending, but we do invite the press to stay for Q&A. I want to thank all of you on the web for joining us for history, the announcement of the BREATHE Act. Thank you.